Good morning, beautiful people. How are you? Can you see me and can you hear me? I hope you can. Monday, 3rd of June, 2024. Here we are, live and direct to you. And yes, good morning. Oh, Tony, you fell asleep like you did on Friday. Wait, in the middle of the show, you're kidding me. You are kidding me. Good morning, Brett. Good morning, Sylvia and Synchronized Soul and Mike J. Yes, bang on time. Yes, absolutely. Finally getting the hang of this, Mike. And lovely to see you all. It is Monday, 3rd of June, 2024. Good evening to you. Where are you? Are you in the States, Maria? Good evening. Yes, thank you. I really appreciate that. It's so wonderful. I want to thank you all so much for the incredible support that you have showed me. Thank you for all the messages. Thank you for all the emails. Thank you for all the story and guest suggestions. Of course, as you now know, your contribution forms a massive part of what I am doing here. And thank you for your support in a multitude of ways, both moral and financial. Could not do this without you, frankly. No, I couldn't. Right. It's been a busy few days for the globalists, hasn't it? These last few days, what with the World Health Organization 77th event in Geneva and the annual Bilderberg meeting, which was held in Spain last year. Have you all been keeping up to speed? This year, rather, not last year, held in Spain this year over the weekend. Let's look at what's what, right? Well, many people from the so-called freedom movement headed out to Geneva for the WHO event this weekend. This was the annual meeting of the World Health Organization and its 194 member companies. At the center of much of this is the concern about the adoption of the IHR, which is the International Health Regulations, where every country will be forced into a lockstep on how we respond to the future, to pandemics, as they may call them, and that will be on the say-so of whoever is running the WHO at that moment in time. At the moment, it's Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, and despite all the pushback that has been taking place, the WHO pulled the ultimate stroke and breached international law when they confirmed that the IHR are agreed, and this was on the basis of drafts made available on the same day. Thus, they were not available to be reviewed. This is a globalist organization that is running scared. We can see it. We can smell it, right? I know in the comments you can smell it. You can smell we got them on the run, right? And the WHO has had to resort to trickery to force through an agreement that is, frankly, as undemocratic as it gets. And the WHO went further and said that they intend to have this all agreed and tied up within a year. However, all is not lost. We still have power to act against it. And let us be clear here. This is an all-encompassing scenario that they want to take care of. This is health in all guises, and I use health advisedly, frankly, and in air quotes, because it's health as the globalists deem it. So for example, like climate change, and the WHO tweeted that they have recognized climate change as an imminent threat to global health, passing a resolution which underscores the urgent need for decisive measures to confront the profound health risks posed by climate change. And yeah, we've heard it all before. The Met Office announced that in the UK, May was one of the hottest on record. Well, not in my back garden, it wasn't. And presumably not in your back garden either, if you're in the UK. Surely they couldn't be misleading us. UK government tweeted and sent out a press release in regard to what happened at the WHO over the weekend, saying the UK would like to thank the Bureau and Working Group for all their work. The IHR are an important technical framework that helps to prevent and protect against the spread of disease. Really? This set of proposed amendments updates the regulations to reflect lessons learned, including from COVID-19. Really? Every member state, including the UK, now has the right under the regulations to evaluate each and every amendment before making a sovereign choice of whether to accept or opt out of each or all of the amendments. In the UK, we have a general election on July the 4th, and we are therefore in a formal pre-election period. It will be for the elected government to make that choice. Pass in the buck. The UK recognises the importance of ongoing cooperation, including as we continue to discuss a new pandemic accord following the delay agreed this week. So the bottom line is this, people. You have to contact your MP, even if you think they are the worst thing ever, right? They are still an elected representative and they still are supposed to represent you. You have to contact them and you have to tell them that we must opt out and they must vote to opt out. We have to be careful who we trust with our health, obviously, and freedom. And we've seen enough to know who's who, right? Tell me, what are your thoughts in the comments? Tell me. What's this? Healing the silence. Anyone who grows their own food will tell you it wasn't a hot May at all, says Tony Adams Nose. This is absolutely true. Good morning to you, TJ Pockets. Hello, short order cook. What's going, James? Had to put the heating on during the day in my house, says James Crode, in sunny Bournemouth. I had an open fire this weekend. Can you believe it? Like literally. And May was one of the rainiest, says Patricia. I had one at my door on Sunday, a politician creature, told him they were all criminals. Good on you, Shug. Good to hear it. Wonderful to hear it. And what are your thoughts about who? Tell me your thoughts there. Tell me about this whole kind of pandemic treaty and what you actually think. Beg them to not be, I have no idea. We had our fireplace on it this weekend too, says Soul Sound. No way was it a hot May, says Peter. Scorchio in Jockland's last few days, says Shug. Indeed. Wet, cold, torrential rain, says Hepperwin. That was May. And also tell me where you are watching me this morning. Where are you? Been a hot weekend in Edinburgh for once. It was actually lovely. When was it? Yesterday or the day before? I can't remember because they're so short now. To tell them to throw it in the bin and vote for freedom of choice and personal self-determination, says Short Order Cook. Yes, Paul, Parliament is shut. There are no MPs. Yes, I know your Malibites, TJ Pocket. Absolutely. And Outrunner 68, we had the log burning stove burning many days in May here in Wigan. Oh gosh, don't tell the eco-fascists, will you? Because they absolutely hate that stuff. Oh dear, what? Well, your MP is Ed Davey. Tony, good luck with that. Rain, 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 says Catherine. Oh, Dave is in Merseyside. Colin is in Jersey. Sarah is in New Zealand. Heldo is in sunny Glasgow. Is it sunny there? It's a bit grey here in southwest Greater London. Good morning, South Wales. Good morning, Sydney, Australia. And good morning, West Midlands. Good morning, Durham, Cumbria, Cornwall, Hounslow. You're near Heathrow, are you? Australia, Manchester, New York City, 4 a.m. JL Gonzalez. Thank you so much for being here. How wonderful is that? So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to welcome in our first guest today with some real decent advice that I trust this person. I trust this person on the issue of money and finances. And I don't get to say that often about people, but this one I do. And after we've talked to her, I want to talk about the Bilderberg meeting that took place. And here she is, lovely Jasmine Birtles. Good morning, Jasmine.
Hello there. Hello there. It's lovely to be here. First time on your program. So nice to be one of the first.
Well, it's absolutely lovely to have you. Jasmine, of course, for those who aren't familiar, and why ever not, is a journalist. She's a TV and radio commentator. She's a money expert. She's many things. She's a speaker. She's a writer. And she's somebody who has a real grasp of what is going on in this globalist totalitarian system we've all found ourselves caught up in. And Jasmine, of course, first and foremost, you're most famous for financial and monetary advice. And that is why you're here with us today. But of course, we want to bring you back to talk about many things, including our shared interest in the Lucy Letby story.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. So let's kick off then. So one of the things that you were saying is that the different parties are promising all manner of things about money. And can any of them really get us out of this mess?
I don't think so. And it's possible that they'll put us in even more of a mess, which is a joy, isn't it? Just a joy. I mean, to be fair, part of the problem, in fact, a fundamental basis of the problem is that it's not just Britain that's in deep doo-doo financially. It's the whole of the West, really. I mean, just if you just look at the debt to GDP ratio, and as you know, GDP is gross domestic product. It's what we collectively make as a country, you know. And the amount of debt that we have now is apparently it's 100% in this country. In America, it's 120%. In Japan, it's 260%. You know, can you imagine, you know, if you're an ordinary person and you make 100 grand a year, but your debts are 260,000, you know, and when I'm not talking mortgage, I'm just talking credit card debts, you know,
Right, right.
you've got a problem there. There is a
Yes.
problem. This, you know, it is a worldwide or a Western nations wide problem. But we've had 14 years of Tory governments, and Tories are supposed to be the party of low taxation, and we have the highest taxation ever. And they are suggesting putting up, well, actually bringing down the tax for retired people, which is, you know, understandable in a way, but it's clearly vote grabbing. And as Labour has pointed out, unusually for Labour, they've pointed out that, you know, their sums, the Tory sums don't work, and that where they say they're going to get the money back isn't going to work. On the other hand, Labour are talking about, and we are concerned that they are going to bring in wealth taxes. So, you know, yet more taxes if you happen to make more money, if you happen to make money on an investment. They want to bring more taxes on second homes, particularly, you know, buy to let, that sort of thing, which is, again, it's kind of understandable. You think, okay, you know, we need to bring in a lot more money, but when you tax people too much, they stop working, they leave, they'll go to India, which is, by the way, a very good place to invest. You know, they will go to Dubai, they will go to wherever. All the people who are making money will leave, and that's going to cause problems for us. So it's a really fine balance, and I don't trust either of them, frankly.
No, no, me either. How much of this, I mean, obviously, perilous state that you're describing there, but how
Mm.
much of this is directly attributable to what went on over the last 4 years? So, for example, we were, you know, producing money like confetti and
Yeah.
handing it out in furlough and all of those things. How much of that is responsible for this state?
Well, it's hard to quantify, but a lot in my version, in my view. Of course, we had the financial crash in 2008 where we started really ramping up the money printing. We've been printing money a little bit here and there since the 70s when Nixon took everybody off the gold standard. But it was 2008 that we really started to do the bad things in order to try and keep everything going. And that hasn't really stopped. But as you say, from 2020 onwards, we were producing money like, as you say, confetti and giving it out like sweets. And I think, you know, there is billions of pounds that have been wasted in furlough, wasted in the pretend business loans, which people took and then just went bankrupt, and they said, thank you very much, we'll have that money. And since then, also, the problems with people not wanting to go back to work, not wanting to go to actual work, actual office. And by the way, my business, Money Magpie Limited, moneymagpie.com, all my team, we all work from home. So I'm not against working from home,
No,
but for civil servants, absolutely not. For
right.
there are a lot of jobs where you really do need to go into the office, and a lot of people really are swinging the lead. They're on the golf course, you know. So we've got that, and we also have, of course, a lot of people long-term sick, a lot long-term sick, thanks to the jib jab, I consider. So we've created an horrendous problem for ourselves over the last 4 years, and it's continuing.
Yes, it is problematic. And obviously, one of the biggest things that has really hit people very hard is the extortionate energy bills that we are constantly facing. And what we're obviously seeing is these energy companies are making record profits
Yeah.
while telling us it's really hard, they're really struggling. But you're saying that the energy bills are likely to fall in July, right? What should we do in this situation?
Well, yes, you're right, because the Ofgem is actually bringing down the energy price cap. So per unit, your energy will cost less as of June, July. I mean, but one thing to be aware of is that they're saying it's going to go up again in October, then January probably come down a bit. So What I'm suggesting is people fix now, or in the next couple of months, have a look, maybe keep looking for the next few weeks, just see what's available, go on those comparison sites and see what's available. But I would fix for a good 12 months if I were you, just to make sure that you've locked in those savings.
So one of the other things, right, is that there is no doubt that prices have risen exponentially. No doubt at all. I was doing my weekly shop this weekend, and I was actually shocked. Some of the items that I buy have increased by as much as £2 per item. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
depending on what it is, and it's extraordinary. And we are constantly told inflation is coming down, cause of celebration, but I'm not feeling it in my pocket, and I doubt you are either. So how much has it really risen in the last few years?
Well, yeah, this is a very good point because, as you say, the government's going, oh, it's coming down. We're coming down to the 2% because that's the magic number. 2% is because it's a good idea to have a bit of inflation. 2%, the economists say, is a good thing. And they say, look, it's 2.5%. I don't know what it is exactly at the moment, but it's over 2%. And so you think, oh, prices are going to come down. Well, inflation means it still means that prices are going up, but they're just going up by a smaller amount. But if you look back over the last 4 years, prices really, on the whole, have gone up by at least 20%. So, you can say, oh, they're not going up by very much. Look, we're bringing everything down, but it's from a much higher level than it was 4 years ago, really. And it's an extraordinary jump. And so suddenly, or gradually, if you like, over the last few years, suddenly we are having to cope with this whole different scenario because I don't see prices coming down, really, genuinely coming down. They might, again, looking at Japan has had deflation. It had it for 30 years. And the deflation is not a good idea. It's a good idea to have prices coming down to a decent level. But if you have continuous deflation, then you've got a problem because nobody wants to buy anything. You just wait until it gets cheaper. So that then you get this sort of spiral, which is why we need to have inflation at, a little bit of inflation, 2%, just sort of keep things moving, really.
I'm just reading some of these comments, some of the steps that people feel forced to take in order just to be able to live. Sarah says, I even turn off all lights at night and turn things off at the wall. I do that simply because I have a fire issue. I was caught in a fire as a child, Jasmine, and it's affected me ever since. So I have a sort of OCD about fire. So yes, I turn it off, but not for electrical reasons. Catherine says monthly wages don't cover the household bills, let alone the skyrocketing food costs. And that is the problem. We are literally being priced out of living, aren't we?
Yes, absolutely. And again, to be fair, we're not the only ones. I mean, if you ever see on the internet, there are all sorts of videos about the price of food in Canada, in America, in France, in Italy. I've got an Italian friend I met just recently, and she said that because she lives sometimes in London, and she said that food prices are more expensive in Italy, but energy prices are way lower, way, way lower. Broadband's a lot lower, mobile phones a lot lower. So, you kind of swings and roundabouts. But I think across the board, certainly in this country, wages have in no way kept up with the cost of living, not at all. And I've got friends on benefits, on universal credit. They're really struggling as well, which, by the way, is pretty irritating when you come across those stories like the one last week about that Bulgarian gang that stole.
Oh, absolutely outrageous. Outrageous. And I just as an aside, I was reading at the weekend that they've not even been able to secure that money back again. At the moment they're operating on something like 6% that they've managed to retrieve. Absolutely. And I think it was something outrageous, like 54 million
It
pounds.
was 54 million.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely
staggering, isn't it?
outrageous. That
Yeah.
was, do you know what? Seeing as you've brought me on that, I feel like that was allowed to happen. It almost beggars belief.
It does.
It
Yes,
is
yes.
extraordinary. What's your take on that
Well,
story?
it is very, very weird. It feels I can only assume that there was some people in the civil service in the DWP who were working in tandem with them because
Right.
yeah, how can you do it? They're creating false addresses, or actually the same addresses. They were creating false names, all that, and such a huge operation. There has to have been some sort of collusion there, you'd think.
Yes, it is really, really troubling. Jack says, I haven't had my heating on for months, wrapped up in scarves and hats. When I cook, I make enough for a few days, eat once a day. Sometimes I might buy a sarnie in Lidl's. People, this is really awful that
Yeah.
we are literally struggling so much, aren't we? And
Yeah.
yeah, there's so much profligate waste around us,
Mm.
of course. Government notoriously waste our money, sending it
Yeah.
overseas. And this is really hard for people here, people who are struggling. And
Mm.
half the time, I haven't got a clue what to advise anybody to do. I say, grow your own food, grow it
Yeah.
in pots on the windows. It's
Mm.
amazing what can be achieved, but it is difficult. People are
It
talking
is.
here about being priced out of living and
Mm.
how I saw one comment which actually said that their local council was now turning off street lamps at night. Isn't that actually when they're for? I mean,
Yes.
that's a fairly dire state of affairs when that's happening, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and it's true because I get asked when I'm on programs, what's your tips for people? And like I have got to the point really where I'm thinking there isn't very much more that I can say. Although one thing that I do talk about a lot, and again on my website, Money Magpie, we have a lot of articles about how to make money on the side, and that's my best tip at the moment is to make some extra. There are loads and loads of lovely, side hustles that you can do, from dog walking to being a film extra to babysitting. There's always something you can do. But of course, there again, it depends on your time and energy and ability to do this sort of thing. So not everybody can, but that really is my main tip. Get a
Yeah.
side hustle or
I hear
two.
you. And it's through necessity, but we really shouldn't have to do any more than one job, should
Hmm,
we, in
shouldn't
order to be
really.
able to live well? Now,
Yeah.
before you leave us today, talk to me about wills, because wills are often a source of great problems. Sometimes people don't even want to think about them because it
Yeah.
just feels too upsetting and sad. But your friend had a problem and you would like to highlight that, right?
Yes, absolutely. So, my friend, she has a godfather, lovely godfather, who became almost like a father to her. When she lost her parents, he was like a father. She'd be around his house all the time. He got ill. She was looking after him regularly, and he said to her, I'll be leaving you something in my will. I will. I'll do it." And he already did have a will. Good for him, because more than 50% of the country don't even have a will at all. He did, but he hadn't updated, and he said, "Yeah, I'll update it." And then he suddenly died. And he had this old will, and not only did it not leave much for her, but there was some confusion about some neighbours who he'd promised this and that to, and it's not in the will. And they've been phoning up, and they've been phoning up the executors, and there's all kinds of unpleasantness which didn't need to happen. And so I do say to people, make a will. Even, I mean, you remember dear Jill Dando, who died in her 30s. She died intestate, and she had over 1 million. And so whatever age you are, if
Right.
you've got anything,
Right.
you've got some stuff, make a will, make a cheap one if necessary, and then try and update it if things change, particularly if you get married or if you've got kids, or you get rid of something or whatever. Update it and tell people where your will is. My mum didn't tell me where her will was, and it took months to find it. So that was it's a nuisancey thing. And I tell you what, I mean, because of the situation with my mum, I thought to myself, there should be some sort of central place where wills are uploaded, uh,
Right.
maybe on blockchain, something like that. And then I found out there is some sort of organization that begins with a C. I wish I could remember. I should have looked this up before I came on. It's not Caritas, but it begins with a C anyway. And so it is an actual organ. There is something where you can upload wills, and I think we should promote this,
Mm,
because
mm.
there people do have wills, and no one knows where they are. So
Yes,
can't
yes.
tell everyone where it is.
And grief is hard enough without fighting over wills. Absolutely. Jasmine, you're about to leave us. One final word. We must stick with cash, right?
Yes, thank you very much. Stick with cash because we have the possibility, the big shadow of CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, which are the devil themselves. I think they're a terrible thing, terrible idea. I understand why governments and various organizations want to have them because they are more efficient, but they are a nightmare of control and authoritarianism, I think.
Absolutely. We must resist them at
Yes.
all costs. Absolutely. Thank you so much, everybody. This is the lovely Jasmine Birtles. Have a beautiful week, Jasmine.
Thank
Take
you,
care
and
of yourself.
you.
Thank you for joining us today. Take
Thanks.
care. Bye.
Bye.
Right, lots of great advice there, people. Right. Okay, let's have a look at some of your comments. Thanks, Jasmine. Please return, says Merv. Jack's dreaming, closing banks down, few cash points around in this area. Let me tell you something, right? When we moved into this area, Teddington, Southwest London, Greater Southwest London, there were two main banks on the high street and a plethora of cash point machines. There is now two cash point machines left and zero banks. No banks. Yes, she's a lovely lady. Yes, absolutely, Mark. Thank you, Jasmine. Have a lovely week and take care, says Healing the Silence. So obviously they're getting rid of that. There's no doubt about it. But we need to hold on to our cash. We absolutely do. And she's absolutely right, because once they are able to put in place their CBDCs, obviously they can track us. They can decide how we're going to spend our money. It's already a problem when you go into a bank or when you want to withdraw a chunk of your own money and they ask you what you want it for. I find that it is lovely, Tony. Teddington is absolutely lovely. I find that absolutely egregious when anybody dares to ask me what I want to withdraw my money to spend it on. I irritates me. Before we bring in our next guest, let me look at the Bilderberg meeting, which also took place this weekend. If there wasn't enough globalism in 1 week, welcome to the annual Shillfest, the Bilderberg meeting. The 70th Bilderberg meeting ended yesterday, was in Madrid, Spain. We are told that the Bilderberg meeting is a forum for informal discussions about major issues. Sure it is. There's nothing informal about it. Let me tell you, the Bilderberg has been shaping societies for decades. Oh yes, founded in 1954. It's an annual conference designed to, they say, foster dialogue between Europe and North America every year. Between 120 to 140 political leaders and experts from industry, finance, labor, academia and the media are invited to take part in the meeting. The key topics for discussion this year, I don't think any of this is going to shock you: the state of AI safety, the changing faces of biology. What could possibly be the changing faces of biology? Because biology is pretty stable, actually. Climate, of course, is on the agenda. The future of warfare, geopolitical landscape, Europe's economic challenges, US economic challenges, US political landscape, Ukraine and the world, Middle East, China and Russia. The guests, normally the UK contingent is strongly populated by British politicians, but they're not there this year, of course, because they are in election preparation mode. Some of the people that I noted there was Albert Bourla. You may remember him. He is the CEO from Pfizer. Michael O'Leary, he's the group CEO of Ryanair. And then there were three journalists representing the UK, all from the Financial Times. How interesting. Martin Wolf, Gideon Rachman. Actually, no, two. I've got that wrong. There were two. And there's Minton Beddoes, the editor-in-chief at The Economist. There was Wael Sawane, CEO at Shell PLC. And there was Demis Hassabis, representing the UK, the CEO of Google DeepMind. And finally, representing the UK, Mustafa Suleyman, CEO of Microsoft AI. And it's really interesting because it's all very secretive. They want to make it sound like it's really informal. And, it's just like people who just want to chill and hang out and everything. It's a lie. I once confronted Yvette Cooper. She is, of course, in Labour. It was after a Bilderberg meeting, literally days after it. And her husband, Ed Balls, had been in attendance. And I knew that he had been in attendance, not only because I had people who were there, but also he had problems getting in. And so it was all splashed all over the newspaper. And I asked Yvette Cooper about it, and she denied him being there. She actually denied her husband being there. And here's the thing, it's a secretive society. Yes, it is. the people who go there are subject to the Chatham House rule, which, if you are not familiar with the Chatham House rule, it states that participants are free to use the information received, but neither the identity nor the affiliation of the speaker nor any other participant may be revealed. It is said that the participants take part as individuals rather than in any official capacity because of the private nature. What? So we are sending, politicians and all, I mean, when it's private companies, do what you want, your business, right? Yours and your shareholders. But when it is public figures, such as people who are beholden to us, who we pay for, politicians, they absolutely should not be bound by Chatham House rule. And we're told that they are not, that when they go, they're not bound by the conventions of their office or by pre-agreed positions. Well, they should be. When they go off to a major meeting, they should be bound absolutely by the rules of their office when they are politicians, no doubt about it. And it really makes me quite sick, frankly, the whole thing. Our future is decided there. Yes, it really is. Secret handshakes and agreements, they take place. Of course they do. These people think we are daft. They think that they can convince us that they're just going for what, to Spain for coffee and cake and chat with somebody from overseas. No, absolutely not. The Bilderberg meetings have, as I say, been shaping society for an awful long time. Have open days. You can go in and look around Chatham House. Yes, nothing surprises me anymore, says Anne Hollowell. Good deeds have no need for secrecy. That's why it's a secret, says Beyond Belief. I get that. Good morning, MK Ultra. Damn right, says Alan Hall. Let us bring in our next guest, who has absolutely nothing to do with the Chatham House rules, but is a very interesting character nonetheless. And let's just see if she's with us. Any second, any second, any second. I'm sure I can find her. Yeah, let me just get that ask to start video, ask to unmute, usual stuff, right? Let me just, here she is. Lovely Emma. Lovely Emma. Bear with me, Emma. 2 seconds. How are you?
Good, Sonia. Nice to see you.
Absolutely lovely to see you, everybody. This is Emma Hardy. She's a mum. She's an ex-teaching assistant. She's an ex-David Lloyd Club member, and that's a whole other story. And Emma is somebody who is really like walking the talk, and we bloody love it, frankly. You had an interview with BBC, re the whole gender ideology, inappropriate books in schools. The schools were contacted for a right to reply. And as you said to me, they replied, all right, exclamation mark. What did they do, Emma?
Well, I was careful not to name the school in the interview. It was more broadly schools in general. Obviously, it's not a individual problem in one small school. It's nationwide. So the interview was on that basis. But the BBC did on the I haven't actually seen the interview, but they did like a voiceover piece, and they actually named the school in that. And they did get one of the details wrong, where they said that the book was given to my daughter at primary school and it was secondary school. So there was an error in the interview. So the school replied by instructing solicitors to send legal letters to myself and the BBC, threatening a defamation suit.
Right. This is commonly known as SLAP, as you know, right? Strategic litigation against public participation. And the idea is often public industries or places like schools, for example, when they don't want their dirty secrets to get out or be exposed, they will attempt to stop a news agency or a journalist from talking about it, and they will issue them with a defamation lawsuit. And that appears to be what's happened with you. Now, this is fairly outrageous, because one of the things that you pointed out to me is that schools and academies, you know this, you've done your research, they think it's an appropriate use, don't they, of funds to be threatening and silencing people who are daring to speak out about questionable agendas that are being pumped to our children.
I mean, it's fascinating, because I, like yourself, Sonia, don't have a great deal of faith in mainstream media and the BBC. But for this particular situation, I was actually grateful to have the support because they were able to provide the legal support which I received, which was very reassuring. And actually, going forward, as I continue to speak out, I'm in a much stronger position. I'm a lot wiser, and I know to stick to the fact that I can demonstrate. I've got the pieces of paper that say from the school what's been taught. I've got the book in my hand, and as long as I've got that sort of path that I follow, that it's very, very difficult to bring a claim of defamation going forward.
Yeah, it's really about just stopping you from asking questions. That's what it appears to me. Yes. I'd be highly surprised if they actually went, all out and actually, took it to the High Court or whichever court. I think it is the High Court they'd have to take it to. But I would be highly surprised. This is about a chilling effect, isn't it? And you know as well as I do a lot in this whole arena to do with gender. There's a lot of chilling effects that take place, isn't it? There is this fear that if you dare to say anything untoward, we're even subject to it right now on this stream, right? But there is this fear that if you dare to say anything untoward regarding the issue of gender and against the gender lobby, you're in a whole lot of trouble. And the police have backed this up, haven't they? Oftentimes.
Yeah, I mean, going back to your point there, I mean, I'll hand on heart, it absolutely did have a chilling effect, and it did work because I did withdraw my consent for the interview to be aired. So it did work. I did have a sleepless night, and then I did get the legal guidance that I obviously needed to reassure me that I haven't done anything wrong. I am telling the truth based on the information that they've given me. So
it's sinister, isn't it? It is sinister because they want to teach our children, and if we disagree with it, they literally want to use the law to silence us. That in itself, when you look at that as a big picture, is very sinister, and it's happening all over the world, isn't it?
Well, that's why I wanted to bring it out, because I am speaking out, and I've made that decision quite, I'm quite happy with the decision I've made. But for other parents that want to follow the path as well, this is large sums of money, and it is scary. And like I say, the BBC have actually reported the solicitors to the governing body, the regulatory body, for issuing a slap. So it's not gone unnoticed. And obviously the BBC do have expensive lawyers, and that has obviously sent a shockwave back to this particular school for this behaviour.
I mean, it's interesting, of course, because both you and I know that BBC have been real kind of Johnny or Jill come lately on this whole thing. And they've been as oppressive as anybody else, haven't they, in terms of the whole gender issue? I've talked before about how I was dropped at the last moment from appearing on Nikki Campbell's Big Question because of my stance. And we know it's been, really very totalitarian over there. And for example, it's Pride Month, of course, now. And this weekend, I noted that on Saturday Kitchen, they were literally normalizing and glamorizing elective mastectomies on Saturday Kitchen. It's quite extraordinary, isn't it, that this is allowed at our national broadcaster, though?
It's behavioral nudging. There's no other word for it. We are being fed absolute garbage, and it's been normalized on the mainstream. It's been normalized in the books, on the TV, in the films, in the schools, and it's absolute nonsense. So I wouldn't know what goes on the kitchen programs. We've stopped watching that sort of thing a long time ago. We don't have garbage in our house.
We love that. We absolutely love that. Tell me, Emma, where do you go from here with this?
Well, I'm going to continue to speak out. I'm going to make sure that I do it in a way that allows me to keep speaking out. And should there be any fallback, if the school should come for me again, I've got the support from the Free Speech Union, which I would recommend that people join, because obviously we need more voices speaking out, not less.
We definitely do. And just briefly before you go, of course, you also stood up to David Lloyd about the same thing as well. Are you not exhausted by now having to deal with this awful argument that doesn't actually make a lot of sense?
Well, I've just forgotten a bit, but going back to the school, if they had asked me not to go ahead with the interview, and well, I mean, it was out of order. But what really tipped me over the edge was that they repeatedly sent me a letter insisting that I sign their terms, which was essentially a gagging order, stopping me from speaking out in the future and stopping me from mentioning their name. And that was, and like I say, they did that repeatedly after I'd given them reassurances that I wouldn't do that. And that really was the straw that broke the camel's back. So if you push me too far, I won't go away. I'll just come back stronger.
Good, strong Northern woman. We love it. We love to hear it. Keep speaking, Emma, says Soul Sound. Absolutely. So vital. Absolutely important what you're doing. And if each of us like took that kind of level of responsibility, we would have overturned this nonsense years ago, wouldn't we? Really, that's the truth of it. But you're doing brilliantly, everybody. This is Emma Hardy. Where can people catch up with you and find out what's going on here, Emma?
My crowdfunder for David Lloyd's is at Democracy 3. And I am on Twitter, Emma Hardy. Again, I need to know what the numbers are, but I can never remember them. There's a bunch of numbers after my name, but you'll find me on there.
Yeah, absolutely. We will find it and we will get it in the comments. We absolutely will, everybody. This is Emma Hardy. She's fighting for all of us. She's fighting for all of our children, the future of our children, just to be able to have a childhood, frankly. Thank you so much, Emma. Greatly appreciated. Lovely seeing you this morning, everybody. Emma Hardy. Take care, Emma. Thank you. And that's what we need, isn't it? Each one, teach one. When each person takes some level of responsibility, it is phenomenal. And I see you're making in the comments, you're talking about figures. By the way, I've got the backroom figures here. Our views are 1,650. And I think I saw somebody say that Sky had 2,000. Think about that. We're small. We're absolutely small, and we're catching up, and we're pummeling some of the competition, including GB News, which is wonderful. We absolutely love that. Right. I wanted to talk about, let me come to this. Oh, gosh, so much to cover. First of all, solidarity, of course, with our Chinese friends as we approach Tiananmen Square anniversary tomorrow. 35th anniversary of the massacre of protesters by the People's Liberation Army around Tiananmen Square in Beijing, 1989. Estimates of the number of people killed range from several hundred to several thousand. And in China, discussion of the event is so tightly censored, with public commemorations actually banned and online platforms scrubbed of any mention of what took place. So censored it is draconian, absolutely. So censored is it that people in China sometimes actually refer to the event as May 35th. It's a coded reference to June 4th because the date is considered so sensitive. And for decades, Hong Kong held a sort of annual vigil in Victoria Park. It attracted tens of thousands of people, quite naturally. But since 2020, under the guise of COVID, they stopped that. Well, last week, the Hong Kong police went a step further. They arrested 6 people, marking the first time since the city's new national security law, which has become known as Article 23, has been used against suspects since it was implemented in March. The 6 people are aged between 37 and 65. They're accused of publishing messages ahead of an, in quotes, upcoming sensitive date, according to a police statement. The state of that, the actual state of that. One of the women arrested is now in prison. Local media identified her as Chow Hang Tung. She's a prominent barrister, human rights activist. She's been jailed on other charges for standing up for the people. The police raided all the homes, took all the electronic devices, and said those who intend to endanger national security should not imagine that they can avoid police pursuit anonymously online. And it goes on, really. And this is literally, this is a police state, no doubt about it. And the problem is that we in the UK, we like to go, oh God, we'd never be like that. Have you taken a good look at the various laws that they're attempting to push through, including the Online Harms Act, which already went through? But we are in a perilous state in the UK. We really are. Look, we are a hair's breadth away from the government being able to access all our bank accounts if we receive any form of what they call benefit. And that could include pensions, anything at all. They can just access it and go through it under the guise of, is this person fraudulent? So, as I say, solidarity to activists in China, recognizing and remembering the Tiananmen Square absolute tragedy, murderous tragedy. God bless them all. Hope they are okay. Rest in peace, those who were prepared to really give up their lives for a greater cause. And what I want to say is I'm still following the supervolcanoes in the greater Naples area in Italy. People are fleeing. It's awful. They've been caught between these two potential supervolcano sites, which is Mount Vesuvius, which obviously historically destroyed Pompeii. And so it's really very scary for people. They're experiencing heavy earthquake activity around these volcanic eruption sites. And Jen wrote to me after I made a comment. This was following Nicholas writing in and asking me my thoughts about the volcanoes. And Jen wrote to me and she said, could this be HAARP? Well, yes, in short. For those who are not familiar with HAARP, what is HAARP? It's High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. It's the world's apparently most capable, high power, high frequency transmitter. It is for the study of the ionosphere. This obviously is absolutely capable of creating earthquakes. I mean, there's no getting away from it, really. That is the reality. And some people say, well, what is HAARP used for? They say the goal of HAARP is to conduct fundamental study of the physical processes at work in the very highest portions of our atmosphere called the thermosphere and the ionosphere. And yes, Mark, HAARP, energy weapon, absolutely. So the point is, Jen, you could be absolutely right. I'm going to bring on somebody, not today, I'm going to bring on somebody to talk about this in more detail, because I think that when we see these variously erupting volcanoes around the world, we really should sit up and pay attention. Absolutely, we should. No doubt about it. And yes, people, we have entered Pride Month. Yes, we have. But here's the thing, doesn't Pride go on for June, July, August, September? Because it certainly does in the UK. And in fact, they have Pride marches and their Pride Festival in the UK. I think is it usually in August, right? And but basically what you have with Pride these days is really it's the wholesale allowance of people with fetishes allowed to parade naked on our streets, primarily men allowed to parade in front of children. Who's sick of it? I am, absolutely. But not Adele, it would appear. You know Adele. She's long sold out, of course. She has talent, but she was chosen for the spotlight because she's prepared to go along with all manner of agendas. She was a stickler for C19, and she insisted on people attending her Las Vegas show that they have COVID passports. She was forced to backtrack on that. But she is also one of the most expensive artists to see in the world. You know, here's my take on her, because I'm going to tell you what she had to say about Pride. She's talented, but she's not that special. She's not so far above and beyond the reach of mere mortals, even though, because of what she's been prepared to do and say, she's been sort of hoisted to those heights. Anyway, talking about her agenda, during one of her weekend shows this weekend in Las Vegas, an audience member called out that Pride sucks, and she went mad. She was not happy. And newspapers reported it as a homophobic slur, but it's not saying that. It's not. Pride is a problem for many, including those who don't want their children subject to people, as I say, primarily men, walking around in their kink and fetish gear in public. So that is a problem. And but Adele, I'm not even going to bother reading fully what she said. Lots of swear words, because the thing about Adele, is that even though she has probably more money than God at this moment in time, she still likes to act as if she's a commoner. And the way that she does that is to swear a lot, which is really quite bizarre. That she's just awful person, cannot bear her. Yes, Evola sunglasses. So many gay people are indeed absolutely fed up of Pride, no doubt about it. And because largely it's a straight person's festival these days. Lots of gay people have been kicked out of Pride, and I've reported on that in the past. As for Adele, absolute liberty of her. She's not a clue. That one comment tells me that she really supports the whole idea of children being born in the wrong body and subject to puberty blockers and gender surgery and all those horrendous things, and really nightmarish stuff, frankly. So yes, smile, enjoy Pride, people. Let me see what else looks different since that weight loss. Yeah, very different. And you know, as someone who lost a lot of weight, I know how hard that can be, and I know how it can make you feel. But Adele, you know, the way that she was over the whole C19 stuff reminded me very much. I often compare her to James Corden, another person. See, the thing about Adele and James Corden, part of their fame, people aren't going to like this, but part of their fame rested on the idea that they were supposed to be like us. You know, they were like chubby people. They weren't like over glamorous Hollywood stars. And of course, then they were taken to Hollywood and glamorized up, although not James Corden, who is now back in the UK. How lucky are we? Right, I'm going to bring in my next guest. What's this? Harp in Wales, says one play. Oh, let me hear about that. And Healing the Silence said Pride used to be a celebration of people's rights, and now it's something completely sinister. Yes, Rick, I tend to agree with you about Adele. Yeah, there are a lot of problems. Conjure Laboratories, take Tavistock, leave our kids alone. Hey, I think there was a song once that said something very similar to that. Right, let me bring in my next guest. Really important story here. Let me bring up the details. Wonderful to have him with us. Are you familiar with the story of Clive Freeman? I've covered this story a few times. Let's see. Oh, let me just check. He's got his camera on here. This is not Clive Freeman. Clive Freeman, sadly, is still very much in prison and shouldn't be, but that's a whole other story that we're about to tackle. But I am delighted to be joined any second, if we could get on this camera. I'm sure we will any moment. Here he is. Good morning, Tony.
Hi.
How are you? Lovely to have you with us. Everybody,
Good morning.
Wonderful.
Good morning, Sonia.
Great to have you with us. Tony Thompson, everybody's next superintendent. For the last couple of years, as I say, I've been covering the story of Clive Freeman, a man who is commonly believed to be the longest serving miscarriage of justice case in the UK, if not the one of, certainly. Clive was convicted of the murder of Alexander Hardy in London in the 80s and has been in prison ever since. He could have been released years ago, couldn't he, Tony? But he refused to say that he was guilty of the crime.
Absolutely. He was, we've got documentation we've recovered that was issued by one of the governors, the life governor, back 20 odd years ago, where he said he's a model prisoner. He's reached the end of his tariff, which was 13 years, irrespective of whether he was guilty or innocent. He should have been out 20 odd years ago. And he said, I'm not going out until I'm exonerated. And, you know, he's got amazing integrity and huge stamina. And, you know, we're doing our very best, and he's still there. Interesting, yesterday, the 2nd of June, 1988, was the day he was arrested in Australia. So it's 36 years yesterday, and he's been inside ever since.
I mean, it is actually shocking. And obviously, this has been subject to review, hasn't it? And there's been failures at the CCRC, the review body, hasn't there, thus far? How are we looking currently?
Well, I'm talking to you at a really opportune time. I don't expect people to read it, but I wrote personally to Helen Pitcher, who's the chair of the CCRC, and in fact, this is her letter that she wrote to me on the 28th of May. So just a couple of days ago, this came in, and one of the things I said is, irrespective of your case review manager that's reviewing it, you know, this needs priority, and he's going to be 81 on the 15th of July. He's in poor health, and he's been incarcerated for over 36 years, as you said. And I said, you are the person in charge. You can get this person prioritized, because all I've been getting back is, well, he has to fit in with our existing workload. And I said, well, how many people are in Clive Freeman's case? How many? Of course, they don't reply. And can I just read what she said to me?
Please
the
do.
key thing here. Given the sheer volume of applications that we receive every week at the CCRC, it is neither practical nor fair to our applicants for a case review manager to work solely on one case. I'm satisfied that everything that can be done to assure an appropriate resolution of Mr. Freeman's case is being done. What a load of nonsense. The trouble is, Sonia,
Wow.
nobody cares apart from, you and the people and the supporters. The organizations, I'm talking about, from the police to the Crown Prosecution Service, even his defense lawyers said they can't remember the case. Nobody cares. His family are in South Africa and Zimbabwe. So it relies on a small number of people. So that's why it's so important for people like you and other broadcasters to highlight the case, because literally when you're in, you're in. And if there's no mechanism, if you don't have a release date, you're there forever.
Right, and we're not just being do-gooders here. There is a substantial body of evidence that suggests that not only was he wrongly convicted, but it's highly likely that a crime never took place at all. Right, Tony?
Absolutely. I mean, I've investigated lots of things over the years in the police and subsequently, and this is, it's got all the hallmarks of things going wrong. I mean, for example, we haven't got the time today, but failure to disclose to the jury information about the 4 post-mortems that were carried out, documents that the pathologist for the Crown, who was a very junior one at the time, failed to disclose, that where he initially said cause of death is probably natural causes or alcohol and medication, drugs. But so that was one of it. His alibi wasn't investigated by the police properly. A key witness that said he thought he saw him leaving the scene, the only direct witness, withdrew his statement years later, and the CCRC just dismissed it as out of hand. There are so many things wrong with this case, and yet they plod along as they're now doing, and everything will take its course. So it's an organization without a soul as far as I'm concerned, and organizations don't have soul, people have souls. So the people in it just do not appreciate the enormity of what's happened, and to say they have lots of applications each week is just quite shameful.
Yeah, it really is. And obviously the pathologist who was integral to that conviction was Dr. Shepherd. He's now obviously latterly author, speaker. He's on TV quite often. You sent him a letter, didn't you?
Yes, I asked him to reconsider his position. He's not replied. He's just ducked his head below the parapet, sure hoping it'll go away. Well, it's not going to go away. And similarly, the parole board, I've written to the parole board. Everybody's ducking out and avoiding it at the time. And the CCRC, sadly, at the moment, the CCRC is definitely the last chance saloon. So anybody in a similar position has to go through the Criminal Cases Review Commission, because they're the only organisation at the moment that can refer it to the Court of Appeal. And so we're wholly reliant on that. But by raising the profile, the public profile, to say this is outrageous. You can't. Everybody deserves a fair chance. I'm not denying that. But this man is unique in terms of the time he's been there, his age and his health. And they've acknowledged he is a priority status. Well, if that's how a priority status person's dealt with, no one. I mean, he's had previous applications about 4 years when he was 3 years to 4 years. It just takes a long process. Now, behind the scenes, of course, you've got to look at government and successive governments about how they fund the CCRC. But nobody's protesting from that organisation to say we don't have enough resources, we need this, we need that. So what I'm hoping to do on the back of this and other cases is that the government, and we've got a new one, whatever shape that's going to look like in a few weeks' time, will completely review the way the CCRC operates, how it's managed, how it's governance, how it's funded, so that other people get a fair crack at having their case reviewed properly.
There have been strides made, though, since you've come on board, which is absolutely brilliant. And I have to say, big shout out to Aaron and the team. They work tirelessly to raise awareness of this case, and they do a magnificent job. And of course, brought in lovely Sir Terry Waite, who I've also talked to about this, and your good self, Tony. You have a history of standing up against injustices, including to do with Grenfell Tower. I thought you were a brilliant addition to the team, but not only that, but you are taken seriously by investigative journalists in mainstream media, and Daily Mail have done a series of articles practically unheard of for something like this. And that was really down to you.
Thank you. Well, it's yes, there's a big team behind it. I mean, going back to the prison chaplain, Father Hugh Sinclair, who's been behind Clive when he first met him back in 1989. There's a whole lot of people behind this, but sadly, as we've seen with the post office scandal and others, you have to have some significant media coverage to highlight it, because it's only then that the institutions and governments in particular, and I'm putting governments plural, will eventually do something about it. Now that can't be right. You look at we've got the best legal system in the world. Well, we need to have a good look inwards at ourselves at sometimes and say, actually, is that true? And who's judging us? Is it, self-appreciation isn't worth a great deal. So there are some serious issues about generally. We have the report on Andrew Malkinson coming out shortly on how the CCRC handled it. I haven't seen it, but it will be public. We have had the head of the Criminal Cases Review Commission, Helen Pitcher, who wrote to me offering a grovelling apology for how the organisation failed it. There's lots of similarities in how Clive's case has been dealt with, as occurred with Andrew's case. But of course, Andrew is out, albeit 17 years inside. Clive's still in, so there's a significant difference. But what worries me and what concerns me is these organisations that, the government bodies, and I've been in a couple myself, how they just bat it off, nothing to do with us, nothing to do with us. And it really needs some sort of advocate for people in this situation who can oversee the structures to make sure that cases that stand out as needing special attention get it, rather than, well, you're in the queue, you just have to wait till your case bobs up to the top. So there's a major reform needed that's far wider than Clive. Obviously, my concern at the moment is getting Clive out. I mean, I've asked the Minister of Justice and the Parole Board, can Clive be released on licence on a temporary basis, because Clive doesn't want to be released on parole conditions. It's within the Secretary of State's powers to release him on compassionate grounds whilst this case is being considered. And as I say, all the evidence suggests he's no risk to anybody. The only risk there poses is to himself. I see him every week or so. I'm seeing him this Thursday. I saw him last week. He's explained to him what's going on and the support, asking his advice. How do you want this handling? And he said, your life, my life, he said, is in your hands. So, there's a huge responsibility on me. But the challenges are shared because of the support team and all the huge. I've sort of grasped the ball late on, but there's a huge amount of work going on. I think Clive said I'm the 11th representative for him in sort of legal terms since 1988. He lists them all. He'll go, there's this, and on we go. And I said, well, look, I've just picked the ball up. I've done, with others doing our bit, and we're doing the very best for you, Clive. And he's very reassured about that. And I'll see him again on Thursday, so I'll tell him that we've had the show. But there is a lot going on, and of course, with all the electioneering and all the other global stuff coming on, trying to find airtime is always going to be a challenge.
Exactly. Tell us, how can we support? We've got a series of links which we'll make sure to put into the description. I think we can also put them in the chat. We've got some information that we can put in the chat, but how can we support what you're doing, and just keep letting Clive know that there are a whole bunch of people out here, great comments here, a whole bunch of people out here who want him to be free.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we've done, I think it's a little, I'm not sure, it's some sort of funding thing. Clive will not accept any donations. I will go and see him and I'll say, he's been wearing clothes he's been wearing for like 13 years and he won't accept donations. So we've set up a little fund and said, look, there's a little fund to help you. For example, he gets, I think it's £6 a week is his wage. He spends virtually £4 or £5 that on phone calls, because you're only allowed so many approved phone calls a day. I take him in a bar of chocolate and he makes that last a couple of weeks.
Oh.
It's really quite tragic, but he's a very honourable man, and I appreciate it. So this little fund is to help him with his telephone calls out, and so that would help. We do have a link to the website, I think, and there's also it's called a block vote. One of the question on one of the links should take people through to. It's simply saying, This isn't about people trying to assess whether he's guilty or innocent, because it's complex. I appreciate that. What we're saying is this man deserves to be out now. We want them to support it. If we can get large numbers of people to say, let's get him out, let's get him a bit of life while all this is going on. I mean, there are, we know there's some people who've committed some horrendous cases that have been out in half the time. But Clive's saying, I didn't do it. and I'm not making any judgments or contacts with anybody else, but there's people that have been released, they've been through the system. Clive's saying, I'm not admitting it, I'm not changing my stance, I didn't do it. He said, I promised my wife, 99, but I think it was before she died, in Africa, that I will not leave here as a convicted murderer. How can I go back to my family and to my children, my grandchildren, knowing that I'm convicted, and I didn't do it. And all the evidence suggests he didn't do it. And sadly, somebody did die. But as we know from the pathology, it looks as though this individual died as a result of non-violent death. And that's so it's not, there's a suspect out there instead of Clive. We're saying
No.
this person died of natural causes. Sadly, it was a very sad case.
Yes.
Clive and nobody else killed him. We're not saying there's a suspect that should have been committed. So there's nobody else. This man died of a combination of health and various other things. So that's the position. So we just need to keep banging on,
Yes.
raising awareness. It's difficult at the moment with elections coming in, all the other things going on. But as much people can support, and just their comments are really, really helpful. Clive gets great support and encouragement from that.
Yes,
so thank
absolutely.
you for what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. And talking about a great comment, Chasing Midnight says, you are on my prayer list, Clive. And so say all of us. Great support here in the comments for Clive and what you're doing, Tony. Thank you so much again. I think it's absolutely stunning what you're prepared to do. Put yourself out there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
talk to you soon.
Yeah, and send our love to Clive.
Lovely.
Take care of yourself.
Do.
Tony Thompson, everybody. Take care. Bye.
Bye, Sonia.
Bye.
Bye.
What a great guy. He's done so much in terms of against injustices. But it is a devastating story. Let me just see somebody saying, who's Clive? We've got some our wonderful mods, lovely Crazy Bunny and Soul Sound. Thank you both. You're both sterling and gorgeous and glorious. Have put links in here which will give you the full story. It is quite astonishing that the amount of evidence that wasn't put to the jury, that wasn't allowed in court. And as I say, it is highly likely, and Tony says the same thing, that a crime never happened in the first place, which is obviously astonishing. Right, I want to talk about, did anybody see the Sky report this weekend? You might not have done, and the only reason I'm going to talk about it is because it was a hit piece, right? So Sky News ran a piece, it was a hit piece on the truth and freedom movement. The report starts by claiming this is a conspiracy theory movement born out of COVID and has become a true community, one that is here to stay. Well, at least the last part is true. I mean, I watched it, and the naivety of this report by their reporter, Tom Cheshire, was extraordinary. The fact is that the truth movement has been around a whole lot longer than the last 4 years, but that should give you an insight into the utter shallowness of the report that you are about to watch, if indeed you even bothered watching it, because many people didn't want to see that gunk at all. And so let me talk you through it, right? Because I thought it was interesting, and it is about the demonization of us and people like us. But here's the thing, is that what it told me as a journalist is we now have legacy media, mainstream media on the back foot. Absolutely no doubt about it. Let me tell you about some of this report. We're told this is a festival. So they rocked up at a weekend festival in the north of England, the in short, abbreviated to WTF, Weekend Truth Festival, May Bank holiday, close to the Lake District. We're told that children are taught to chant at slogans saying, I do not consent. And we're told that one part of the population rejects the other's version of reality. Yeah, I definitely 100% reject the version of reality trotted out by Sky News. No doubt about it. Tom Cheshire, the reporter, spoke to the organisers, Nick and Kevin. They gave Sky permission to film. The reporter talked about how people like us have a huge community online, Telegram and X. And it was evident when Tom Cheshire was interviewing people that he was encouraging them to talk. He nodded along with them, made the right noises when events like 9/11 were mentioned. And, you know, all of this is obviously designed, there's no doubt about it, designed to demonize people. And he talked about a poll which showed that more than 2 million people believe a single group of people rule the world together. He talked about the Great Reset. He said, and he's an absolute defender of the Great Reset and the book by WEF's Klaus Schwab. And he said it is admittedly poorly named, was always going to be catnip for conspiracies. He refers to it as anodyne and bureaucratic, like WEF is like any other gathering of people. Now, here's where it gets a little bit tricky for that Sky News report, because this is the point you can see where Sky is blatantly compromised in doing such a report, because senior executive at Sky News, David Rose, is a good WEFer. In fact, he even was chosen to moderate a WEF debate at the Davos meeting on Wednesday, 25th of May, 2022. And you're not going to believe what they were discussing. Oh, yeah, food systems in crisis. Shortly before the world announced that food systems were apparently in crisis. So in 2022, David Rhodes was the group director of Sky News, but his career has advanced since then. In 2023, he was appointed to the role of Big Cheese and became executive chairman of Sky News Group. Oh, yes, he did. No wonder the Sky News reporter wants to play down WEF and Schwab. I would love to have heard the briefing for this report. And of course, guess what? They had to bring reptilians into the report and attempt to make fun out of a woman who was talking about ley lines. The bottom line is this: mainstream media is, well, frankly, sweating like a Prince Andrew lookalike in a Mayfair club in the mid-90s. And it was curious to me that the main person that they chose to focus their report on when he was on stage was researcher Mark Steele, who they were keen to talk about him shooting a girl through the head and having been previously in prison for doing so. I've interviewed Mark before, and honestly, I was cringing at this focus on Mark. It was embarrassing to see the interview with him, and he came over really, frankly, ignorant. He played right into what Tom Cheshire was looking for when he described the Prime Minister as coming from a third world country, when in fact Rishi Sunak was actually born in a Southampton hospital. And, you know, this was exactly the kind of stuff that Cheshire was looking for. He didn't, you know, focus on any of the other speakers like Matt Letizia, for example, or Dolores Cahill, who had carpeted him when he was there. And I think that clip went viral. And Cheshire was also keen to talk about the Great Replacement theory, although it seemed to go nowhere beyond his own ramblings about it. And the fact is, the Sky report was intended to harm truth seekers, to make critical thinkers look like dangerous subversives who know the jig is up. And because we know the jig is up, right? We absolutely do. The last 4 years was, in my opinion, my experience, the last media propaganda era for many. And legacy media know it. They know we are witnessing the absolute certain slow death of them. And I tweeted about it, just saying, congratulations, everyone who spoke out about C19. The Sky News hit piece today confirms how effective we have all been. Keep it up. Legacy media is on the defense, as they should be. They are complicit in the lie. Yes, they are indeed. Yes, they are indeed. I don't know. Who are you thinking of? The Liverpool death pathway explains the replacement theory in its own definition, says Mark. Let me look at this. It was in my town, Sonia. I was there, says Bessie Ford. Did you enjoy it, Bessie? Did you see Tom Cheshire there? And I bet, see, the thing is that what he did was he settled himself on this lovely couple who were very open-minded, open-hearted, and were happy to talk to him. And they probably had no idea that it was intended to be a hit piece, because a lot of people on our side, actually, even though we've been called selfish and all manner of horrendous, horrific things over the last 4 years, we're the ones who actually care about humanity. That's why we're speaking up, because there is a price attached to putting your head above the parapet, obviously, and that includes being in a Sky News hit piece. I see they also went after Katie Hopkins, who was there as well, and she didn't allow him in the tent when she was talking. And me and Katie Hopkins have had many problems in the past, but that was one thing when I was like, yeah, thumbs up, love that. We do, Mazzy, we do know the gig is up. Absolutely, we do. And can I just remind you, lovely people, I am in Edinburgh in 2 Saturdays' time, 15th of June, for a talk, Secret World, Truth, Journalism, Misinformation and Puppeteers. We have a link. We will be able to share that. And I'm very much looking forward to that. The title alone, I almost want to go and sit and watch the talk, except I'm giving the talk. But yeah, we will put a link in the description. Now, let me talk about Saturday in London. That was interesting, wasn't it? Saturday in London, thousands there. The march organised by Tommy Robinson. We talked about it on Friday. One of our viewers had asked me about it. And I said that it has to go ahead. It has to be allowed to go ahead, because whether you agree with Tommy Robinson or not, if you want to start stopping him and his supporters from marching, that will have a ripple effect and it'll impact all of us. So we have to, you know, free speech has to be for all of us. Sorry, I've got something on my lip there. Excuse me. Free speech and the freedom to assemble has to be for all of us, not just people you like. Anyway, let's talk about Saturday. Thousands there, obviously fantastic turnout, not much mainstream media coverage. We were told that it was about a two-tier policing and that it was about nationalism and people wanting our country back. It was good to see no violence, although Chief Fool Lawrence Fox made an absolute tool of himself, as per. So on stage, you know, don't want to see people waving foreign flags, he was saying, as all these Israeli flags were being waved in the crowd. So presumably it's only certain foreign flags that this crowd don't want to see. Then Lawrence Fox went on to film a video where he was drunk. He appeared to be in a crashed car, then videoed himself with the police. And honestly, the thing is, they go on about two-tier policing, but there is endless two-tier behavior allowed for this posh boy. Yes, there is. He gets away with many things, including swearing at the police and behaving absolutely abysmally in front of his children. If he was working class, social services would be making sure that he had accompanied visitation to see his children. So yes, there really is a two-tier system in this country, and people like Lawrence Fox, who comes from an establishment acting family, have long benefited from it. But let's also be clear what was going on Saturday. As I've already said, the multiple of Israeli flags could confirm it was a big Zionist festival. Oh, yes, it was, under the guise of British pride. And I understand a lot of what was said there. I understand that people have genuine concerns about Islam. People do. And a lot of it is because it's been demonized via things like 9/11 in mainstream media. And some people say that Islam is completely incompatible with Western culture. And I get that too. I get that. Absolutely, I do. But let us not be misled into what was taking place here. Tommy Robinson is a big, fat, massive Zionist. We all know that, right? He's certainly been financed by Israelis, but he has a huge following, and we shouldn't underestimate that either. I saw some awful sights, by the way, such as young children who have been raised to hate Muslims. Not good stuff. They were just like kind of repeating verbatim this awful stuff, really. And as I say, I know that there are issues, and I fully accept that people have genuine concerns about people coming into the country via illegal means and via trafficking. I get all of that. And I think that people should be allowed to raise their concerns without being automatically deemed as racist. But I have very serious concerns when people like Fox and Robinson have agendas. And I would argue that when they're out there on a stage, it's not for the good of the British people, but for their support of a foreign power. And that's my perspective on that. Absolutely, it's my perspective on that. And but you know what? I would be more than happy to interview Tommy about, you know, his position on this, his support of Israel, and how that actually pans out in terms of him being able to draw in crowds who have pride in, because we're allowed to have pride, right? We should be allowed to have pride in our homeland if we want to. That's not where I'm coming from. I'm not like that. But if people want to have pride, they should be allowed to. Simple stuff, right? Simple stuff. Right. Let me turn to some viewers' letters, right? Geoengineering. And is anyone listening? A viewer wrote to me and she had written to her MP, the Right Honourable Sir Greg Knight. She wrote, I thought you might like to see the reply from my MP. So is he lying, ignorant of it, or is it a conspiracy theory? He wrote, thank you for contacting me about geoengineering. The Independent Committee on Climate Change has recommended that greenhouse gas removal GGR strategies are essential to offsetting emissions. The government's priority is to try to tackle the cause of climate change by reducing emissions of greenhouse gases from human activities and adapting to those impacts that are unavoidable. Mitigation of climate change by reducing emissions remains the main focus of efforts to increase our chances of avoiding further climate change. However, I can confirm that the UK government is not deploying solar radiation management, also known as SRM, and has no plans to do so. He goes on to say that I'm aware that some individuals believe that the trails left by aircraft constitute a form of geoengineering. However, let me assure you, these are simply the warm, moist exhaust from the aircraft mixing with the cold, drier ambient air, thus producing ice crystals. My viewer is not convinced, and neither am I. When are MPs going to stop hiding behind these press release responses to their constituents? That is a response that will have been drawn up by Conservative Central Office to send to anybody who is asking questions about geoengineering. And Brian also wrote to me on the same topic. Hello to you, Brian. He said, walking my dog early this morning along the cliff top in Seaham, lovely blue sky for once, but the plane started with huge long trails crossing each other. I was furious and so frustrated at both my inability to do anything about it and also at the apathy of the other dog walkers and joggers who just don't look up. The trails came from the tails of the planes and therefore not from the engines. There was nothing at all yesterday. You have spoken about this, and I know it's an open secret, but the scale of the operation is massive. I've lost count of the trails just above me. Multiply that across the country, Europe, USA, and this is a massive effort, almost unimaginable. From the manufacture of the chemicals, transport to the planes, and then the supply of planes, pilots, and airfields. Presumably, the military are involved. Where are the whistleblowers and investigators? How can something so big be done in secret? Where are the airfields? Where are the factories? And which lorries are carrying the stuff? It is so huge and obvious that surely something must be revealed soon. And he went on to say another thought. I am a motorcyclist. Over the years, I have had to clean my visor less and less. Flying insects are disappearing very fast. Flies, blue bottles, wasps are no longer the nuisance they once were. Bees also are rare, right? Pesticides are usually blamed, but maybe those chemicals from the planes are the real cause. Whatever is another indication of what is happening to our world. Indeed. And we are the observers of it, right? I will lose you. I get that. So not surprise you. What, Mark? What's that? What's that? I thought you were smart. Let down again, but I understand. Giving Tommy or others airtime without bashing them will lose you numbers. Wait, what? So you just think that I gave a PR speech on behalf of Tommy Robinson and Lawrence Fox? You might need to clear your ears out, brother. You might need to. I think that's really important. Yes, ASC Wellbeing Clinic. Where are the whistleblowers? We need to know, right? USA pilots have confessed, says Rick Shaw. Yes. Indeed, absolutely. Right. Tyrone wrote in, hello, Tyrone. Lovely to hear from you. I'm gutted. I'm unable to listen to your new breakfast show in real time as I'm at work. I do, however, listen on catch up. And I noticed you mentioned this Chinese proverb. Did you know it's actually meant ironically, i.e. a curse, not a blessing? The implication is that if you live in boring, uneventful times, your life will be peaceful as opposed to the times we're living in now, which could be stressful and filled with anxiety. Take care, Sonia, and please accept my apologies for being unable to interact with your live broadcast. And he's talking about the quote, may you live in interesting times, which I quote often, actually. But it is possible that it's actually an English expression, even though the translation is of a traditional Chinese curse. Also, really important feedback on our story from Friday, where I asked what is happening in Bridgend, South Wales, but more particularly Park Prison in Bridgend in South Wales, where there has been 10 deaths since February alone. This is extraordinary. Of course, Bridgend, former market town in South Wales. A few years ago, Bridgend, as I said on Friday, became famous for suicides. Oswald wrote in and said, I work with a lot of people who unfortunately are frequently in and out of Park. And I have noticed over the last few months how the attitudes have changed. Going back 3 years ago, many of the people I work with would be in and out of Park and treat it like a form of holiday, as they could calm down on the drugs they were using, write off a lot of their offences, many shoplifting, and have 3 square meals a day. Recently, the same people. What kind of world is it, though, when people find jail a better alternative than being out here? There's something wrong with that, right? Anyway, Oswald goes on. Recently, the same people have been saying how much they do not want to go back in, even though they have spent 20 years of adult life in and out of prison. There are many reasons for this, but even the most hardened of criminals are not happy with the amount of drugs coming in. And he goes on to say there is obviously a lot more to this story, and I'm sure that there is also a lot more going on at other prisons in the UK. They are overcrowded. Yes, they are. They're understaffed. Yes, they are. And there is no support for them. Yes, they are. And we are jailing all the wrong people. Oftentimes, that is a fact. It still shocks me that the majority of people who are convicted of downloading child abuse images do not get custodial sentences. And the reason for this is magistrates, who are often overseeing these cases, generally tend not to believe that anybody who's downloading child abuse images are not paedophiles and therefore not a danger in the community. And so they get community service. It's shocking, absolutely shocking. And Mark Porritt, who had alerted me to the story originally, updated the story, telling me that 3 inmates are in hospital and 20 involved in 2 incidents at Park Prison in Bridgend. So as he said, it's a strange world indeed, Mark. It really is. And by the way, talking about it being a strange world, anybody seen that Derren Brown tweet? Derren Brown, of course, TV illusionist. He posted a picture of himself and Kate Middleton at the Royal Variety Show on the 14th of December 2023. His tweet, which is still online and can be verified, reads as follows: Unbelievable, which was the performance he was in at the Royal Variety. Both were very lovely. So this is a picture of Derren Brown and Kate Middleton. He said both were very lovely and terrific at the meet and greet. Incidentally, when she shook hands with me, she pressed a tiny piece of folded paper into my palm. I looked at it later. It just had one word written inside: help. Help. Wait, what? This was the 14th of December. This is like, what, just over a week between the period of time since we've last seen Kate Middleton. But a TV illusionist is telling us that she pressed a piece of paper into his hand with the words help. Why are we not taking this seriously? It is, yes, Derren Brown. So why are we not taking it seriously? I find that extraordinary, because he's not qualified it in any way. He's just left it up there. I'm concerned about that. Water for Sure says Tommy has changed, gave up the booze. Yeah, I have no doubt about that at all. And all of those things may be true, but he's still a Zionist, isn't he? And there was still an awful lot of Israeli flags out there. And the thing is, it wasn't the whole point. It was supposed to be about being patriotic to the UK. But at this moment in time, I'm not sure who is being patriotic to the UK, because a whole lot of people who are claiming to be patriotic seem to have their interests elsewhere, as the globalists like, right? As the globalists like. And so what on earth does it mean, really? And also, what was interesting, of course, yesterday in the Mail on Sunday, journalist Brendan O'Neill, being known for one of those awful contrarian writers, rather. If you say, he's like, if you say this, then I'm going to say that. They sway like the breeze, because this sort of ghastly style of journalism is being based on opposite to what other people are thinking. Anyway, wrote a piece in the Mail on Sunday about people like me who are daring to ask questions, saying that, we sort of lack moral fiber and something has to be done on the internet about us, right? So his piece was absolutely heavy on internet censorship vibes. So do not be surprised if they try and use are questioning of Kate to introduce more censorship. I mean, don't stop asking questions, because they're going to do it anyway, right? And also, you are not going to believe this, you know, this post office fujitsu scandal, right, in which many sub postmasters were accused of fraud. Some were imprisoned, some even took their own lives, and some died before they could see justice. Well, the ITV drama, Mr. Bates versus the Post Office, was made about it. And it really woke many people up to the sort of level of corruption involved. Well, it turns out that Fujitsu are set to benefit further from taxpayer money to the tune of £180 million, because the replacement system that was supposed to replace the Horizon system has been delayed. You what now? That's right. The controversial Post Office Horizon IT system is looking as if it's now going to be in place for another 5-year deal. Computer Weekly reported on it. The Post Office has requested 1 billion of extra public funding from the Treasury to get the programme back on track, apparently. The budget has spiralled, actually, from 180 million to 1.1 billion, and the implementation of a new system slipped back from 2025 to, there's that year again, 2030. 2030. The existing contract with Fujitsu to run that Horizon system, as I say, was due to conclude in 2025, but it now looks as if it will probably be extended to, there's that year again, 2030. And yeah, that's right. That is what is happening. And let me have a drink. Haven't you had a drink? Let me look at some of these comments, right? The Baroness presents bonjour. No idea what that means. Jack Streaming says, bit late, Darren. Well, here's the thing, Jack Streaming. He actually wrote that tweet December 14th last year. Yeah, let's see. Yes. Patriotism is the last refuge of a scoundrel, says Ian Clark. I absolutely hear you. I've never been particularly patriotic, however it's pronounced. And just because I embrace people, I don't embrace people based on where they come from or what they look like or what culture they are or what religion they are. I embrace people on how I find them and what they are doing in this world. That is what I do. Oh, Jan's MP is climate minister. Absolute waste of space unless there is a photo op. Do you know what? They can't wait to get to those photo ops, can they, to do with climate almost as quickly as they love getting to the food bank photo ops. Yes, absolutely. Mark's Avengers 2030, the Great Reset, great for them. Oh, what? No, it's okay. Yes, no, it was December, Jax, which is what's odd, right? So I think that's really odd. Now, a letter from Sir Stan. Are you a real Sir Stan? Either way, he wrote, Dear Sonia, you were a music journalist for over a decade. I was. You interviewed NWA, I did. I wonder, what do you think about the death of Eazy-E? Do you think there is any truth to the rumour that Suge Knight was involved? So for those who don't know, Eazy-E was the main figure in sort of the gangster rap group NWA. He is often referred to as the godfather of gangster rap. He was a brilliantly savvy businessman whose business relationship with record boss Jerry Heller catapulted NWA and their ruthless records into world attention. The film Straight Outta Compton was also a smash hit and sort of documents that rise. Eazy had an absolutely brilliant eye about how to make the ghetto cross over into the pop charts. He came from Compton, South Central LA, and they made the place famous. On February 24th, 1995, Eazy was admitted to the Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles with a violent cough. He was diagnosed with HIV/AIDS. He announced his illness in a public statement on March 16th. And on March the 26th, he died from AIDS-induced pneumonia 1 month after his diagnosis. He was actually 30 years old. Many people reported he was 31 years old, and that was actually due to the falsification of his date of birth from previously. He was buried on April the 7th in California. So in answer to your question, Sir Stan, the short answer is I don't know, but there's much to believe that it is possible. For those who don't know, from the late 80s until around 2000, I was a music journalist. My speciality was hip hop. I interviewed and toured with many artists, including Public Enemy, Wu-Tang Clan, Puff Daddy, as he was then known, Snoop Dogg. And I was one of the last journalists to tour with and interview the notorious B.I.G. before his murder. I interviewed NWA when they came to the UK. I interviewed Ice Cube in LA at his mum's home. I met her, and I interviewed Ice Cube at New York at the New Music Seminar when there was a showdown between his crew, the Lynch Mob, and some old LA enemies. And I also, after interviewing NWA in the UK, including Easy, I also talked with Easy on the telephone as well. And I think I have a fair insight into NWA, Eazy-E, and Suge Knight. So to return to that question, what I do know absolutely and categorically is I talked with Eazy-E on the phone shortly after Dr. Dre got together with Suge Knight and they formed Death Row Records. It was about 1992, and Eazy made it plain and clear to me that Dre was in clear danger, and so was anyone else who crossed Suge Knight. He told me about this violent and sinister man who had now come in and was influencing Dre to think the worst about him, Eazy-E. Suge Knight has extensive gang history, something that is absolutely significant in Cali with the Bloods and the Crips. He was in the car when Tupac was shot and killed, but Suge Knight survived. He ran a hugely successful record label with Death Row, much of it on brute forces and absolute violence. He's currently serving a 28-year sentence in prison. And I'm in no doubt whatsoever that he's a psychopath who has little, if any, conscience about hurting anyone. Could he have been involved in Eazy's death? Yes, he could have. There was, as I say, much that has been said, including from people like Jerry Heller, to suggest that Shu could have been involved in it. But what I also know is Eazy put himself about, and AIDS didn't discriminate when it came to unprotected promiscuity. But either way, Suge Knight is banged up. Is clearly somebody who has his filthy fingers over a number of high-profile cases and situations, potentially including Eazy-E. And all I can really say to that is, that period, that East Coast versus West Coast, was really very dark period where people like Suge Knight and Puff Daddy benefited greatly from it, and unfortunately the artists, Notorious B.I.G. and Tupac Shakur, didn't. They, paid with their lives for these things. And, but the thing about Eazy-E, people couldn't always understand his mentality. But when you come from his kind of background, right, on the street, and you learn to defend yourself, or you become a victim of it. It's that simple. He refused that, and he left a massive legacy. And I love one of his quotes where he said, "Don't let fear hold you back. Have the courage to chase your dreams," which he did. He absolutely did that. Now, one more thing that I want to talk about before I leave you today, you very beautiful people. And that is, I want to end today's stream talking about the importance of reducing stress and being calm. Right? Now, this does not come naturally to some people, me included. And so I've spent years working out how to be calm, even in the face of insane stress. I'm still working on it. And I want to share some of the tips and advice that I've picked up, right? Because I think that is important, because we know stress is absolutely known as a silent killer, and for a darn good reason. It's often invisible to other people. It impacts our neurological and psychological systems, and this can be like throwing a flame on a bonfire at times. But there are many benefits attached by remaining calm, even in the face of provocation. Some of these benefits include the ability to better handle tricky situations, to make better decisions, and to absolutely find more happiness in our day-to-day lives. You don't need to be born calm. You can learn to be calm. First of all, a state of stress is a natural response to a real crisis, right? So let's just be clear about that. But many people become stressed over numerous petty issues these days, including financial and work. A daily stress response would have been absolutely normal for our ancestors who are hunter-gatherers, right? They needed that stress response really to keep them away from being eaten by the prey that they were hunting. However, stress in modern life is not usually associated with true life or death situations, even if it feels like it. And here's the thing, I don't wish to undermine how someone may be feeling, but to show the importance of seeing a situation for what it is and not what your fight or flight response is screaming that it is. What are your thoughts about stress, lovely people? I feed wild animals to de-stress me, says Rock Lover. Yes, please take stress seriously, says HK Very. I got very sick with long-term hypertension last year. Well, let's talk through this. So being calm, moderating the stress response with a sense of realism, and approaching the situation mindfully is literally the difference between being consumed by the situation and managing it, right? Being mindful also includes choosing useful thoughts and not focusing too narrowly on any one thought. And although stress is always going to be a vital part of our lives, as explained why, the real difference is really to do with our attitude to difficult situations. When your attitude is one of calm, the benefits are absolutely multiple. Mental training can help, particularly when it comes to the distribution of our brain resources and whether we use them positively or negatively. Now, I studied psychology only to degree level, but I love psychology, and I think that we should introduce it actually in schools because we do psychology on a constant basis. So I know a little bit about this. The fact is, the human mind has a limited capacity to process information and to sort of conduct processing. So when there are two events taking place, we may not register the second event if the two events are competing for limited resources. And what often happens is the noisiest event, i.e. the one that is creating the stress, is the one that dominates, right? So what we need to learn is good practices for learning calm as a response. Some of these include meditation, visualization, grounding techniques, take off those shoes, go stand in the park. Therapy and counseling can also be used for this, of course. All of these can be used to teach someone to turn their attention from a negative stream of thought to a positive one, thus assisting the calm response. Meditation creates a state of calm. This is a practice that can be learned and taught. There are many tutorials online that can be found. This will help to focus your mind and achieve a state of calm by managing your thoughts. Brain is wired for hits. So when it sees what advantages can come its way, it can organize those benefits and adopt them. So the point is, the sooner you start on managing your stress, the sooner your brain will start to send messages when you then encounter suitable triggers. And I know that's fact because I do it. I've been working on it myself. Things that used to trigger me simply do not have the power to trigger me anymore because I've worked with them, right? So in this case, we're talking about the experience of being calm. And once we experience it, the benefit of calmness becomes easier to set goals and aim towards those targets. And we have these responses to stressful situations as a consequence of neurotransmitters. These are the networks of chemical messengers that carry information from neurons to the parts of the body where action is required. And the brain obviously plays a vital role in this activity. And I don't want to go too deep into the issues of like the sympathetic nervous system. And that's what happens when we're faced with a stressful situation. It's automatically activated. And these responses, you know, this kind of like faster heartbeat, adrenal gland activity, quick respiration, sweating, and the feeling of a dry mouth. These responses are all typical when the body feels it needs to fight danger. So what we need to do is get out of this mode of feeling that you're dealing with danger. Jilly MC says, walk in nature with my camera helps. I love photographing wild birds and pretty flowers. Yes, please. Oh, you're welcome, JL Gonzalez. I love that you're talking about this. Absolutely no problem at all. You're very welcome. Julio, so it's great. If you can't do anything about an issue personally, then forget about it. Focus on yourself. Healing the Silence says anything that helps to release the energy will always release the stress. Remember that stress is energy and that energy needs to be released. Loosen the valve and breathe. Absolutely. Because oftentimes, as we've sort of discussed, there's no real danger, but the brain has wrongly identified it as such. And this can be for a number of reasons, including old habits and random processing. The brain is very similar to a computer in many respects, and sometimes things simply get misfiled, right? When this happens, there's like nowhere for this additional energy to go, and it gets wrongly reabsorbed into the body, and that's where it's dangerous. So you know, the fact is, another benefit of remaining calm is you don't have to deal with this pent-up energy, and because it won't occur in the first place. So already even small steps towards calm can help your health. And do things that assist your calm, such as soothing music, a relaxing bath, even yoga. This will activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is what the body craves and the brain supports when we are relaxed. And you will immediately notice the difference. Your heart rate will slower, your breathing will slow, your limbs will feel looser, and you will be more relaxed. And here's the good is, calmness brings about an immediate sense of well-being and comfort. Yeah, it does. It absolutely does. Because even faced with difficult situations, if you're able to breathing, counting to 10, pulling back momentarily, all of these things can help you initially when you're attempting to get on top of your, perhaps the, do you want to hug me, Mazzy? Thank you, darling. I really appreciate that. Oh, thank you, the wizard words. You're back from the doctors, right? I was watching Sonia Helps. I'll get out one day, bless you. Yeah, it brings an immediate sense of well-being and comfort. And it's sort of, here's the brilliant stuff. It's when we are actually in this state of calm that we can properly battle anxiety and manage stressful situations. I mean, this is the irony of it all. Of course, some people think, if I'm presented with a difficult situation, I need to act on it immediately, and I need to, you know, panic and make things happen. No, wrong way around it. Absolutely. It can take time and effort for it to feel natural, because if your first response is to scream and yell blue murder, or if you are very anxious, you're going to have some work to do, but it will pay dividends. Resilience is another marker here, the importance of it in overcoming obstacles which can create stress. When we experience the truly positive effects of resilience, often in hindsight, we are fostering positive self-esteem. So when you are faced with a tricky situation, remind yourself of the last tricky situation you faced and you overcame, right? That literally fosters the positive self-esteem that you, and self-love, right? This is all self-explanatory, right? And when we are calm also, and this is the stuff I love, it's great for problem solving, right? We see the big picture. Stress focuses us to force on the nitty gritty of things, which often brings distress, unnecessarily so, the need to control the world around us. So another absolute benefit of staying calm is therefore that we can truly see things how they are. Composure is also a great skill to learn in the face of stress. Yeah, it is all of those things. And the thing about being calm is it absolutely brings clarity. It really does. It enables us to be able to make proper decisions based on true facts and not on historic fears, right? I was told, oh, what's this, Sarah? I was told my kind of brain tumor is mostly seen in 80-year-old plus. I was 33 when mine spontaneously grew. How are you, Sarah, now? Oh, what's that? Annie says a lot of Aussies will be de-stressed from 1st July when lowest pay wages will be increased. Go Aussies. Yeah, well, money is definitely a stress factor, no doubt about it. So, as I say, practice meditation, good sleeping techniques, please. Guided imagery is also great, visualization, body work. As I say, the benefits they're just multiple. But here is my absolute favorite reason for remaining calm is it enables us to be in tune with our true and authentic selves, who we really are. And that ultimately leads to the potential for more joy in our lives, because calmness, composure, resilience, they all lead instead to a state of realism, what's really happening, and not the fear that has either been set up in our brain or what other people are trying to induce you to feel. And we've had a lot of that, haven't we? We've had a lot of fear porn. And so we're, get tuned into yourselves, de-stress, do everything, actively work, see it as a project. Because I saw it as an absolute project. I used to be stressed and overwhelmed by, well, actually now in hindsight, little things. But once I started to work with it, the ability to stress me it will take a lot now, really. And I think that now I get stressed over things that matter, not what other people tell me matter. Okay. And before I leave today, I just want to check in on you. By the end of July, we are going to be told the truth about, not sure what Leo guy is saying here. And remember where you heard this first. What are those images? Calm is a superpower, says Andrea. Be in peace with love, said a smart guy. I agree, said Mark's Adventures. And I just want to thank you all. Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that, Rick. Rick's lost friends with brain tumors. Fox says, visualization works and can heal illness. Meditation does not work and it's also a portal to bad stuff. Fox, I have to disagree with you there. I've heard this before. Some people have talked about this. And, you know, I'm not going to disrespect what you're saying. I just say I disagree. But he's saying, well, Fox, I don't know whether it's male or female, visualization, hypnosis, including self-hypnosis, do work very powerfully. I love when meditation isn't only just or anything like that. Sometimes it's just settling in a space, turning off all distractions. You know, we're constantly distracted, right? Constantly distracted. We're constantly being told that some things are more important than they are. Happy birthday. What's that? Be Earth Day Zozo. Wait, what? Is Zoe's birthday? No, that can't be right. Thank you, Blackthorn. What a wonderful, useful, beautiful broadcast. I so appreciate that. And before I leave you today, of course, I want to leave you with a couple of quotes, which is about being calm. The first is, there are times when we stop, we sit still, we listen, and breezes from a whole other world begin to whisper. That's by James Carroll. And the final quote I want to read you today, and wish you all a beautiful, beautiful week. Thank you to the two wonderful mods who have been working here with me today. I so appreciate you. Thank you to everybody who's written in. Keep writing in. Write to me at Sonia Poulton at sky.com. Let me know what you want me to talk about, what you're interested in me researching. And it doesn't have to be from present. It can be from the past, like an easy type situation, anything like that, right? So what I want to finally say to you, because I think it's really important, is calmness is the cradle of power. And Hosea Gilbert Holland said that. And on that note, I wish you a fantastic week. Thank you for being here with us today. Lots of love to you. Take excellent care of yourself. See you Friday.